Hello, welcome back to the studio. My name is Dan Shelley, a professional paintball photographer. And in this episode, I sat down with the brand manager of Major League Paintball, Alex Sorenson, and we talked about what it's like to literally create content for a living for brands that have hundreds and thousands of followers. This is definitely an episode that you're not going to want to miss. It's incredible. Let's jump right into it.
Photographer of the year. Let's hear it for Dan Shelley, Shellda Photos.
And today I am joined by the incredible, the brand manager for essentially what I would consider all of paintball, Major League Paintball and all the brands that encompass it, Alex Sorenson. And Alex, before we jump into introducing you even further, I just want to quickly say thank you to my show sponsors. BFP Gear signed on day one. And I know you've worked with BFP Gear and Junior and Gina, and you know how incredible they are. And awesome. And they've just treated me like I'm part of their family. Like I get calls from them and texts, at the week, like thanking me about the show, and we talk about it. And so it's been so cool. And as we're getting closer to the season, like they've hooked me up with gear that I need for the year. The great thing about it, I'm in Texas, they're in California. I still have my stuff for the weekend whenever I need new gear. And then the second sponsor, Hormesis, Alex and team, they have just treated me so incredibly well. Like I just got an email from Hormesis. I'm like, what is this? They're sending me like another shirt or jacket. And he was like, yeah, just run with it. Like you need more stuff. It's mind blowing that how incredible Alex is and what he does. And somebody asked me this weekend, like, hey, why Hormesis? And this right here, like I can't step on the field without my Inner Dragon headband. I've worn this literally every single weekend for the past year and a half. If I forget that, I will literally turn around, go home and grab that. I don't even care if I have like my mask, like that's the thing that I need. So thank you so much to Alex and Hormesis. But back to Alex, the other Alex. How are you today, sir?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Crazy. This podcast journey has just been wild. Like if you had asked me a year ago, hey, would you want to do a podcast? I'd be like, no way, not a chance. And here we are. I think this is my 9th or 10th show. I'm close to 1,000, if not subscribers by the time this hits. And like the feedback has just been more than what I could have ever asked for in doing this. So yeah, needless to say, like I pinch myself every time I sit down to do one of these interviews.
I understand. That's good though.
Yeah.
That's good.
So what I want to talk about with you today, well, first of all, I know you. I know how incredible you are. But can you give the viewers and listeners like a quick elevator pitch of what your role is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I am the brand manager for Major League Paintball. That encompasses the NXL, the WNXL, the ICPL, and NXL Europe. What that entails is kind of just making everything that goes out to the public look as good as possible. I run the social medias for all those accounts. Manage websites, do all the stuff that goes on in the back scenes for those kind of things. I mean, of course, there's a lot of help, but at the end of the day, that's kind of my job.
Whoa. That's a lot.
It is a lot. Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. Like when I was Florida last year your first event, or was it the second event?
Vegas last year was my first event in this role.
Vegas, that's right. And I think when I had finally met you, and at some point throughout the events, you showed me your phone, you opened up Instagram, you're like, yeah, here's all the accounts I run. My mind was just blown of like, how does one person have enough time and energy to like run all of these different brands?
It's a lot. It takes a lot of careful planning with time. You have to be very efficient with how you do things, for sure.
Yeah, it's I want to go deeper in that, but I do want to share really quick from the first time I met you to, now like you and I have a working relationship. That first time I just saw you were like a deer in the headlights. You're like, yeah, this is a lot. And I think that's what everybody typically expects from somebody in this role.
Yeah.
And, like I could just see like, you were just like, well, I don't know what to do. And then fast forward, this past World Cup, which was a monster of an event in its own. And you look like a completely different person. Like you were calm, you were collected, and a lot of behind the scenes things happened. And like, I would see you pick up the phone. Yep. Got it. Understood. And then you would take action.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah. Have you reflected on that from like where you started to how you've grown throughout that?
No. Not at all. To be honest with you, it's been pedal to the metal from day one. And I need to take a minute and kind of reflect and see where we're at, but I haven't yet. I'm sure it'll hit me like a ton of bricks one day, but we'll address that when it happens.
Why? So I would love to know about that when you have time to reflect.
Yeah.
But why specifically this role? Like, did you have a background in paintball or a background in marketing at all?
No. I have a background in paintball. I've been playing paintball not as long as a lot of people. I've been playing paintball probably since 2016. I got into competitive paintball in probably 2020. I got linked up with some friends. We started playing from work, and then got linked up with a couple of teams, played for a few different teams, and then just kind of went all in.
And as you're saying that, I think I remember the first time you and I met, you were actually doing video for Ghost.
Yeah, so I was doing it for MLPB. The way that all kind of ended up happening is really funny. So the team I play with here in Alabama is Tribe Savages. We're a 10-man team, and one of our other teammates got linked up with Tom and Kevin to help with the MLPB project and just getting everything for the brand kind of up and running. And I was shooting photo video at the Hormesis 1v1 event that happened at Prime, which is right down the road from me. That's kind of our local field. That's where we play a lot of paintball out of. And Brad was there, and Brad was like, "We need another photographer. Are you interested in this?" And this was before, it would have been in between event 3 and 4 in 2023.
Okay.
So they were like, "Hey, would you be interested in coming to Chicago and shooting Chicago with us?" And I was like, "Of course. Yeah, let's do this." I was in a spot in life where I was trying to figure out a way to make media a full-time gig. And I didn't really know how to do it, but I figured paintball and just shooting as much as I can would get me there one day. And at that event, it just kind of happened, and went and shot Chicago for MLPB, and then shot World Cup 23 for Major League Paintball as well, doing all of that. And build a relationship with Tom and Kevin with MLPB. And then Vince stepped down, and I was offered the job. And I said, "Yeah, sure. This gets me kind of the goal that I wanted of being in a media position full time, and allowed me a lot of flexibility in my schedule and be able to kind of move wherever I needed to move and do the things I needed to do and wanted to do in my free time." So it all just kind of worked out, I guess, the way it was supposed to.
Hey, podcast fam, I just want to interrupt super quick and say thank you so much for tuning into this episode. And speaking of tuning in, did you know that nearly 75% of you aren't actually subscribed to my YouTube channel? So the quick, easy, and free way to show your support for this channel is by just hitting that subscribe button below. That's all you have to do. And then if you do that, I can commit to you bringing you new guests each and every week, as well as continuing to find ways to constantly improving the show. All right. Thank you so much. And let's get back to the show. Wow. That's what I love about that. And I do a lot of reflecting, and I've lately been journaling quite a bit to like help through, reflecting on my journey so far. And one of the things I've realized is the power of answering one question. That one moment right there, if you said no to that, like your career right now would be totally different.
It changes everything.
Yeah.
Changes everything.
So that the power of just saying yes to something and seeing what doors unlock from that, and all the things that kind of have to fall in place with
Yep.
Vince leaving after he had just started.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a time you had joined when there was a lot of uncertainty, because we went from the previous person, I think his name was Matt, and then Vince.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And like, Matt did a great job. Vince was like starting to do some things on the up and up, and then he leaves, and you're now stepping into shoes where people are like, oh, here's another one. Like, let's start the timer. How long until Alex, can't do this anymore? And so you had a lot of pressure on your shoulders when you first started.
Yeah, I mean, it was very interesting, kind of knowing what had happened or transpired with all of that. I mean, Matt crushed it for years and was absolutely killing it. And if Matt hadn't done the job that he did, then I wouldn't have this job. The league would be in a completely different position. And my hat's off to Matt Ingles, because that dude is a just rock star and deserves every bit of credit that he could possibly receive. And then Vince stepped in, and I think it was too much for Vince. Yeah. And Vince decided that his life would be better if he wasn't in this role, and he stepped down. And it was very interesting stepping into that spot, because it was very much a, dude, are you just going to make it? Like, can you just make it past one event? Are you going to break? Are you going to crumble? Are you going to fall? And at the end of the day, it was just one of those things where it was like, I'm doing this job and it doesn't really matter what happens. We're just going to make this work, and we're going to figure it out as we go.
Yeah, that's incredible, because I had a mentor a while back who told me he had like recently just taken a job, and he took over for whatever the role was. Like, it was in shambles, and people kept blaming the last person, like, hey, this person did this person did that. And the advice that he gave me that has stuck with me ever since, and I noticed you did this right away. Like, people were blaming everybody else, and you're like, hey, I don't care about that. Like, this is my job now. And like, all those problems are now my problems. Yep. And like, it just immediately like quieted all the doubters. And like, oh, all right, Alex is, he's pretty serious about this.
I mean, if you're going to do something, you have to do it right. And if you decide to start a career, start a job path, start whatever, whether it's working out, a new career, a hobby, anything you want to do, if you're going to do it, you have to do it and commit and own whatever decisions it is that you make. And if you're not going to do those things, then it's going to fail every time. Yeah. So I made a decision that I was going to do this and do it to the best of my ability. And that means owning every problem that comes from it, whether it was somebody else's problem, my problem, somebody created something that I have to live in, and I have to own it and figure it out. If I want it to be better, then it's my job to make it better.
That's a lot. I think the thing that I take away from that, and something that's been really my classroom lately, like the thing that's resonated with me, is consistency. And I've had so many different people in paintball media, photographers or videographers, newer folks, like, hey, how do I get to where you're at? And we can talk, how to edit, we can talk how to see a field and how to talk to different brands and whatnot. But the biggest piece of advice I always say is you have to be consistent in it.
Oh yeah.
If you're going into something, just like you said, go 100% in, go more than 100% in if you can, because if not, it's going to show.
Correct. And you got to buy in, and everybody knows. It's attitudes are contagious. And if your attitude is being bought into whatever it is you're doing, everyone else notices. So if you're in it, be in it, and everyone else will understand that, oh, okay, I get it. This is what Alex is doing now. This is what Dan's doing. Yeah. And they'll just be like, all right, cool, let's go.
Yep. Yeah, I love that. I love that mindset. I really want to get to talking about like leading up to what you do at events, because I think your role in between events, Monday through Friday, looks completely different at an NXL weekend. So can you tell us about your role as a brand manager for essentially, we'll call it paintball. Can you tell us like what your typical Monday through Friday job is running the brands?
Ooh, that changes every day. Usually it's wake up, look at what emails came through, kind of address whatever is going on in those emails, whether that's talking about scheduling stuff, talking about event stuff, and kind of address those first. And then usually that gets me about mid-morning. I'll have a phone call or something with somebody trying to figure something out. And then usually that's when I kind of sit down, go through all of our social medias, go through all the DMs, check messages, accept collab requests, share the stories, kind of go through that whole process. And then afternoon is usually same thing, back to the emails, check the emails, see what's going on. Whatever projects we have in the works, do those, update websites. I mean, the list is very long, so it's kind of a day-to-day thing of just picking a couple of tasks and kind of just going through them. And then at the end of the day, I'll check DMs again and do that whole thing and just kind of address things as they come. There's a lot of things that right now, because we're kind of in the off season or leading up to our first event of the year, it's been a lot of logo design and talking to designers about that kind of stuff, and event locations, event names, kind of the behind the scenes stuff that not a lot of people know happens, I guess, or the conversations of the schedule and how we're doing this and where we're going and all of those things. So that's pretty much the 9 to 5 in the short.
Jeez, the thing I love about what you're saying and like what Matt the Gym Rat has said and what Ryan Greenspan has said and Alex has said is to run a brand or literally do anything in paintball other than playing, you've got to wear so many different hats, right? Like in just an 8-hour day, which I'm sure is more for you, but in a typical work day, you've got to become a project manager. You've got to become customer service. You've got to be a negotiator, social media manager. I mean, those are just the 4 things right there. And those are 4 careers that people spend their life doing, and you're doing it all in one day.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. There's a lot of what's called prioritize and execute. That's an old like military style term, but it's very much pick a task, attack that task until it's done, then pick a new task. And it's very much a balance of handling the most important things first and being able to pivot and adjust as new most important things come in, because everything's the most important thing to everybody.
Yeah. And I've seen, and we'll get to the talking at NXL events, but I've seen that where people come up to you and like, hey, like I need this right now. And to them, it's the most important thing in the world at that event. But for you, you're like, whoa. There's so many other things I need to take care of before I get to like your little worry, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's important.
And I mean, it's a interesting balance because everyone's most important thing is truly their most important thing, right? Yeah. I mean, that's their most important thing. It doesn't matter if it's the smallest possible thing that I could imagine, but that's their most important thing. So it's finding a balance and learning how to interact with people and tell them or work with people to be like, all right, yes, we will handle your thing. I promise. I just have this other thing I have to handle first because it came to me first. So it's very much it's a time thing. It's first come, first serve type situation for a lot of stuff.
What has this role taught you about yourself?
It has taught me that I talk a lot. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about. I think it was before the show, but just like having a moment to reflect and see where I've been at this past year. And I haven't really had that moment yet. So I don't know. I don't know what I've learned, to be honest with you. I've learned that I can balance a number of things at once, and not break, but I also need to do better at balancing all those things at once. I've learned that I need to do better on a number of aspects of my life outside of just this. And it's all about personal accountability at the end of the day. If you can't, I think I've come to realize that no one cares what happens as much as you do in your life. So if you don't care about your life being the best it's going to be, no one else does. So at the end of the day, whatever you want to make happen, you have to make happen on your own. Of course, there's help. Of course, there are people to support. Of course, ask for help if you need it. But in order to make whatever it is that you think is the right call, you just got to do it.
Yeah. Gosh, that's life advice right there. I mean, that resonates so much with me because Amanda and I have had just some really in-depth conversations recently, because I've always struggled with what's the judgment of somebody, you know, whether it's even wearing like something as simple as a paintball shirt in public, like, man, what does that person think? Or starting a podcast or starting whatever the journey is. It's one of my first thoughts is like, wow, what do they think about that? And then I've noticed that oftentimes stops me from making those decisions. And so it seems like in this role, you've been able to learn, like, I can't worry about that at all.
I think I've always kind of had that. The people closest to me, I care a lot about what they say. Everyone else is of little influence, in my opinion. And it's been that way for a long time, because if you're in my inner circle, there's a reason. And I trust those people with my life. And what they say matters. And everyone else is just a bystander. They have very little effect on my life. It's not a dig. It's not bad. It's just kind of how I've chosen to live my life is, hey, I don't have time to worry about what 7 billion people think. I don't. Yeah. I have time to worry about what 5 people think. I have time to worry about what 10 people think, but I don't have time to worry about what everyone else does, because like you said, it creates paralysis where you kind of just sit there and you go, well, what if they don't like it? Like, do you like it? Like, are you happy with it? Because that's what matters. Like you have to live with your decisions and make decisions based on what's good for you and your mental health, and that's priority number one. Like they say in an airplane, take care of yourself first, and then take care of everyone else. Because if you can't help, if you are not squared away, you can't help anybody, no matter how much you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, man, I love that so much. Sal said that in my very first interview on this he was like, if you made it into my phone as a contact, he's like, you mean something to me. Yeah. And I really respect that from people that have like a really small knit of people that they respect and look to for, or they look to for those thoughts and to build their own characters. I've noticed myself that's something that I aspire to be. I've always been hey, I want to be friends with everybody and like we're all friends. But I'm noticing maybe it's the old age, as I'm getting older, like I'm starting to whittle that down to where I only have that group of people where, all right, I'm really going to look to you for your validation and for your respected opinion.
Yep. I mean, there's a very real thing that a king has to be cordial and friendly with everyone, but he doesn't listen to everyone. He listens to a handful of advisors. And once you find those advisors, that's who you need to listen to. And everyone else you be friends with, you be nice, you have lots of friends, but you have a very small number of advisors.
Man, life advice there from a king.
Definitely not a king. Definitely not a king.
Hey, maybe you're one king of paintball media.
Oh my goodness.
That's I do want to talk about that just a little bit more though, because I've noticed myself. I've always been like a people pleaser, and I'm starting to like grow out of that phase. And I think being in your role, it almost seems like you that's something that's a struggle, not necessarily for you, but for someone that's running like a huge social media brand, is you're in a spot where you have to try to please everybody. How do you juggle that?
It's kind of back to the same concept of there's a handful of people's opinions that truly matter. I have bosses that I answer to, and their opinion matters first. So any big changes that we got to do, any stuff like that, it always goes through Tom and Kevin and kind of gets verified through them and make sure that the things that we're putting out are what they want and match their goals for the league and kind of putting us on the right track to be where they imagine us being. And everyone else has an equal share of pie. They have the largest share of pie. Everyone else splits the rest of whatever's left evenly. So it's a lot of seeing the trees for the forest and really focusing on, okay, does this help our goal? Does this help us get where we want to get? And if it does, then we'll use it. We'll prioritize that. If it doesn't help us get to where we want, it kind of falls back on the list. It doesn't go away. Yeah. Like, it's not like I don't care. It's just, it falls shorter on the list, and we have to handle the things that get us where we want to be first. That's the most important stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the thing that's resonating throughout this podcast so far is you're a very task and list oriented person. Seems like.
Yeah, I have to be. If not, I get scatterbrained really easy.
Yeah.
And if I don't kind of keep notes and keep sticky notes and dry erase boards with a list of stuff on it, then things get lost, because there's so many things coming at me from all angles at all times that if I don't kind of make a list and attack it that way, then it's just not going to get done. I'm going to forget about it, and it's just not a priority then.
That makes total sense. I mean, that's great advice for, I think, for anybody, whether you're in this type of role or if you want to be a brand manager or not. Creating a to-do list or a plan of attack on how to achieve your goals is incredible.
Yeah, and I think it's not everybody works well with lists.
Yeah.
Right. And if lists don't work for you, don't make a list. But I think you need to understand where you're trying to get. And if you can make a goal, this is where I want to be by the end of this year, this is where I want to be by the end of the month, then you have a thing that you're trying to get. And then you just make sure that everything you're doing goes towards that.
Yeah. So thank you. That's great advice for me personally. That's been a topic that Amanda and I have talked about a lot so far this year. Is, like, this photo journey has just been bonkers since I started, right? Like, at that first event, when I literally turned on my camera for the very first time, I had my NXL media shirt on backwards. If you told that person now, like, hey, you would have written a book, gotten photographer of the year, all the other crazy accolades, I've been like, there's no way. And so I went through that first year and a half without a goal, without like, hey, what do I want out of this thing? Yep. And so it's been a shift for me to start to like, all right, where do I want this to go in, the next year or two, in the next 5 years? I think there's a balance too, right? Because like, if you're just starting off, like you with the photography thing, if you're just starting off, it's like, you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And
it's just doing it, just showing up every day, doing it. And then once you get in it for a while and you start to kind of understand the ins and outs and what it requires of you, then you can kind of really start figuring out goals and start making goals for yourself and figuring out how to get there. But when you're just starting, sometimes it's best to just not worry about it. Sometimes it's best to just, all right, this is what I'm doing now. Why? Because I like it. That's why. Yeah. Like, it's just, you like it, so do it. It is what it is. And then you can figure out goals later.
Yeah, that's kind of how this podcast really started. Like, I've always wanted to be a content creator on a bigger scale, like a YouTuber, right? And I've tried so many times and it's failed miserably. But when the idea floated around of doing a podcast, I was like, you know what? I like talking to people. I need to do a better job at listening to people. And so this would teach me a lot of those skills. And I just kind of fumbled into it. And, now that we're into it, like that's where the goals are starting to come into play. And I'm reflecting. Like what I do is I have a journal where after each episode, I'll actually write down like, what did I learn personally, like from you and my other guest. And man, it's taught me so much already in a short period of time.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's transition a little bit and talk about your role at NXL. And so obviously we know you're crazy Monday through Friday, not at event weekends. But what does it look like from the moment you land, at an NXL event, which I'm assuming is days, if not a week before anyone else shows up?
It's actually not.
It's not. Okay.
No. So a lot of the stuff that I have to do for events is pretty much on a computer. So I can do 99% of all of my work either on my phone or at a computer in the build up to an event. Nice. The build up to an event is a lot of coordinating with whatever designer we're using for the event to do score alerts, graphics, whatever graphics that come out during an event. We usually plan in advance and have templates figured out before we ever show up on site. So that way, once we get on site, it's very simple to just plug and play, coordinating with our photographers to get the photos that we want for the graphics and then kind of work that way. My week of event, we'll take Tampa, for instance. I will fly in. The event starts Friday. I'll fly in or drive in, whichever one, Wednesday, usually mid-morning, early afternoon. And that allows me to go to the site, kind of start figuring out where my tent is, the Pro Media tent, make sure internet's set up, all our tables are set up in the tent, chairs, get everything set up so that way we can just kind of start rolling once the event starts. That's Wednesday. I'll usually go check in the hotel, get kind of settled. And it's nice to get there Wednesday because it really gets you a time to get settled and figure everything out. Because Thursday, the event starts Friday, but practice is Thursday. Registration also opens up on Thursday for everything. So during a standard event, Thursday morning, I'll get there whenever registration opens. If any of the photographers are able to come in early, we'll kind of discuss what shots we want during practice or during that registration day, if there's anything that we need from that. And then it's a lot of, on that Thursday, it's a lot of talking with the people of the media, making sure registration is going smooth, continuing to make sure that my tent is set up properly and that everything's squared away. So Friday, when I show up, there's no worries at all for that. And then usually we'll do some kind of post regarding the fields. So showing the field, pictures of the fields, kind of close up, showing all the sponsor fields, and then whatever last minute content needs to go out for the event, that will go out Thursday, and I'll kind of focus on that. So Thursdays, go ahead.
Pause there. So you said whatever last minute content goes out, how is that decided? And like, what is that content that you're talking about?
So usually on the Thursday, that week leading up to an event, we post things like schedules, event maps. Oh my goodness, there's a long list of stuff that goes out that week, kind of leading up. And vendor lists. Thank you. Lots of content that I'm sure I'm forgetting a number of stuff, but people are also, that's when it really turns up because people are traveling. They're taking pictures of planes and their luggage and their passports and tagging us in them. And I love sharing that stuff because that's our network. Those are our people. So a lot of time on social media that day, I'll share 99% of everything that kind of comes to the NXL's account just because, hey, you're tagging us, you deserve it. Like we'll get you in the stories, we'll get you shared. And then the content is usually just informational stuff at that point. It's very, here's our event layout, here's our pro schedule for the day, here is our vendor list, here is the schedules are live, because schedules usually go live Wednesday, I believe, maybe a couple days earlier in the week, but it's usually Wednesday night. So we'll usually post something about our schedules are up. And that's kind of the pre-event graphic load.
So that sounds like that's a team effort, right? You've got folks that are creating those graphics and then they're sending them to you
Yep.
to post that. Is there any approval process, or is it literally, hey, you get that graphic and you are the approver and post it?
I am the approver. I, over the last year, have realized that I am not a wonderful approver sometimes. So I have tapped in a couple of other people to help double check stuff and proofread more. So that way we can make sure that we're not missing anything. There's no misinformation on any of the posts, and make sure that everything is exactly correct. I mean, like the event layout is something that takes a lot of work to get right. Fatty, our setup manager, our coordinator who does all the event setup for every event, is a rock star. So he will literally walk around as he's laying the field out, draw it all on a piece of paper, say, this is where this person is, this is where this person is, these are our vendors. And then we hand it over to Camille, who is our international event coordinator. And Camille will verify that everything checks out. And then that will go to one of our designers who will put it on a graphic. And then we will post that graphic then. But there's something as simple as that is not simple at all, because we're making all of these events every time. So we don't have permanent events. So everything changes every event. So that's something that doesn't get done. That's one that isn't preloaded. That has to be done the week of, once the event has been set up. So.
Wow. That's incredible. That's, those are things that, like, I hope people that are listening take away from just the work that goes into these paintball events. Like, even though we're going back to, or we have historically gone back to some of the same venues like World Cup and other locations, it doesn't necessarily mean you can reuse previous posts or previous layouts, because it all changes every event.
I mean, vendors change event to event. So things like a vendor list, stuff like that, have to get looked through with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that everything's correct. I mean, we made a mistake this year with kind of copying and pasting a vendor list to a new graphic and it wasn't right. I didn't check it enough and it wasn't right. So stuff like that happens. And we just have to make sure that we're going through checking everything and making sure everything's correct, event to event.
Wow. That's so much. It's a lot of
yeah. I mean, and then even then, like, our branding changes event to event, right? Because our event logos are different. So our brand colors kind of change event to event. Graphics will have a different look and feel from one event to another to match where we are and the event name, the graphic, all of that stuff. So sometimes we can kind of use the same stuff, tweak colors, tweak some stuff, but sometimes it's just starting over.
So speaking of that, like when you're walking through the event on Thursday, when you get there, are you starting to look for potential avenues for content, or like, ooh, this would be a story, or I definitely want to feature this at some point?
Usually that day I am walking around, checking in with sponsors, making sure, kind of walking the vendor area a lot, seeing who's here, who do I need to talk to, who do I need to say hi to, kind of just checking with everybody, make sure everybody's okay. So that way I also know where everyone is. If someone asks me, then I can just be like, this person's there, go see them. And then that way it also allows me to, if somebody has a new product that they want shot, or if there's an interesting booth that's at the event that I may not know a lot about, it gives me an opportunity to go talk to them, figure out what it is, figure out if we want to do a piece on them or not. And it allows me to get a real feel of what's going on at the event before everyone really shows up and it gets really chaotic on Friday.
That's so cool. It's good to hear that you're actually walking around and you're almost wanting to immerse yourself into experiencing it for you, and that way you can understand what would people want to see that maybe aren't here at the event, and how to feature those booths.
Yep. Yeah. And it allows me to kind of start building our shot list that we have for photographers of, hey, we probably need to cover this booth a little bit more because they have so-and-so going on. And we need to go check out this booth because of X and this booth because of Y, and then kind of go from there. So it allows me to start putting the picture together of exactly what we want to kind of make the event come.
Gotcha. And then now that that picture's starting to get painted, as
Mhm.
you transition into the weekend, what does that content look like? And obviously, I know from working with you that it's so quick and fast.
Mhm.
But walk us through what your role is as the pro matches start and as the rest of the event starts.
So once the pro matches start, things kind of get locked in, meaning that there's not a lot of room for craziness. I'm usually not running around just running my mouth, um, which I have a tendency to do sometimes. But usually, once gameplay starts on Friday, um, our photographers are shooting matches, and then they'll come off. If they get something cool, they'll come off a little early, maybe not, and edit a photo real quick. We'll get that to our designer. We'll get that in one of our score update graphics, and those we kind of wait. We can get photos early, put them in a graphic, and then we just wait for scores. But so it's a lot of making sure that everyone's where they need to be, and making sure that photographers understand what they're going after for that day and what kind of shots they want. And then it's addressing whatever fires may rise during that day. So there's a lot of phone calls, a lot of, hey, is this person where they're supposed to be? Hey, what's going on with this? Where's that drone? Why is there a drone right here? Why is this person on the field? This person isn't supposed to be here. This person's wearing the wrong gear, blah, 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 blah. So it's a lot of just being able to pivot and figure out when I can step away. Because usually once matches start, I've got about 40 minutes to go handle whatever I need to handle. And then match will end. I will verify scores with our score table at the pro field, and we will upload it into the graphic. We'll type up the graphic will get exported to me. We'll type up the social media caption, hit post, and then we start the whole process over. So
Wow.
it's just a constant revolving door.
Yeah.
So over and over and over again.
That's just so much. Like you said, it's revolving, right? Like it's something that happens however many pro matches there are on the weekend.
Yep. 8 a day.
8 a day. Yeah.
8 sets a day on the pro field. So that's 16 matches total.
And then, of course, on Sunday, you've got the divisionals that come over and the rest of so it adds even more.
Yeah. And then event 1, 3, and 5, we'll have the WNXL as well.
Yep.
So we do everything we do for the NXL, we try to do for the WNXL as well, because they're just as much pros as everybody else.
Yeah.
So we will have a dedicated photographer who sits on the WNXL field, which is usually the Lone Wolf Premier field. And they will do the same thing that whoever it is on the pro field's doing. So they'll take photos of every match. They will pick a best photo, send it over to us for the graphic, and that photographer will verify scores on that field and send them to us as well. And then we'll do the same thing. So whatever we do for the NXL, we try to do for the WNXL.
Yeah, that's been so cool being a part of. For those that don't know, World Cup was my first time on the actual Major League Paintball staff as a photographer. And just the work that Alex talked about that goes into that, it was really cool to get a peek behind that. I think we had a team of photographers on that field, and there were maybe 2 or 3 of us. And we ourselves got into a cadence of like, all right, I'm going to shoot this team, you're going to cover that team. And you start to have like a, just like what's the word I'm looking for here? What we're going to do with each other, right? It's so like,
yeah,
I understand. Okay. He's shooting that. He just got that big moment. Okay. I don't have to worry about that now. I can
good.
now focus.
I can run away.
Yeah. And, you're just starting to get into this like unspoken rhythm is what I was thinking. It's an unspoken rhythm where, okay, I just got like a crash at the 50, or I got this epic dive shot. Let me go back and edit it quick. And then you tell the other photographer, cool, let's focus on something different. So we in our own media create processes to help the bigger beast of, the social media content go out just for one post.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty crazy. And I try to let you guys, the photographers, there's a list of shots we need. There's stuff we need. To me, after you are aware of that list, however you get those shots is okay. It's it doesn't matter to me. We just need those because I understand that. I mean, being a photographer myself, everyone has their own rhythm. Everyone has their own way of doing things. Everybody has their own things that they see, things that they watch for, things that they do. So I'm not going to be like, hey, you need to sit in this spot and take photos of this. It's just not how this works. So it's too much of a personal creative experience for a photographer or videographer, for someone in a managerial role to try and tell them what they need to do. It's like, hey, I need this clip or I need this photo. It doesn't matter how you get it. I just need it at this time.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was actually worried about at first when I accepted to shoot for Major League Paintball World Cup. I was like, man, I'm a very flow person behind the camera where I don't necessarily do well with like a shot list, or I need all these things because then I feel like I'm shooting just to shoot. And so I was pretty worried about going into that, but I learned a lot about myself of like, okay, I can still use my techniques and my creative flow in these shots that you're asking for. And it was cool. It helped me elevate my game with some of the, like off the field shots or like some of the more staged photos. So it was a great learning experience for me too.
Yeah, for sure. And it's definitely a different thing. Like being a league photographer is a different experience that no one really probably understands, and it's fine. You don't need to understand it, but it's not the same as just shooting for a team at all. It's not.
Yeah, I think at World Cup, the day started, photographers had to be at the field at 6 or 6:30 in the morning, and then we didn't leave until 6 or 6:30 at night. And then go home, laundry, still have to edit photos and get to the league that night. And then whatever commitments you have as a photographer for other brands too. And so it's a lot of work being a photographer for media for the league.
Yeah, it's not an easy job at all.
Yeah.
And I understand that. And I want to make sure that y'all are okay. Y'all are my first priority while we're at events as far as personnel go, making sure that y'all are square and y'all are taken care of and lack for as much of nothing as I can make sure. So that's just how it's supposed to be, right? You're just supposed to take care of the people that you're working with.
Yeah. That's a great management and or leadership philosophy, is take care of the people that are serving you and helping you.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what goes into the decision on who gets access to the pro field, and just a little backstory for those that don't know. If you are a paintball photographer or videographer, you can apply. I think it's through the Major League Paintball or NXL's website to be on the pro field and or divisionals. And so talk me through that process for you, because I'm sure you get a ton of applications to be on it.
Yeah, so divisional, just so everyone knows, divisional media, anyone can be divisional media. I mean, we have a rule book and there's some things that you need to follow, some equipment requirements that we try to make. But it's fairly simple. I mean, a registration link will go live around the same time that registration opens for the event. And you just register, you show up, you pay your fee, whatever it is. This year would be $100 unless you show up late, and it's the $150 on site. And then you get your ID, you go take photos, and that's kind of how that goes. That covers divisional media, covers every field from the Lone Wolf Premier field down to whatever other fields there are. The only field you can't get on is the pro field, with a caveat that I get asked a lot, but if a divisional team is on the pro field, that field is a divisional field.
Yeah, and I love
so
that.
The field's name, or like level, I guess, is determined by the team that's on the field. It is not just the pro field all the time. So when divisional finals happen, a divisional photographer can go out there and take photos on the pro field. That's how that's supposed to work. You're taking photos of that team, so you can go take photos out there. For pro media passes, it's a little bit more complicated. There is an application that lives on the NXL Paintball's website. It's nxlpaintball.com/event media, I believe. But you can find a link to apply On that link, you can find all the rule books, drone waivers, any kind of information on when registration closes, when it opens, a link to the registration, and then also a link to the Pro Media application. What that is anyone can apply. You can submit an application through the link on the website, and then I go through and kind of just look at everything. I look at your social medias, I look at whatever photos you submit or video that you submit on the application, kind of verify that stuff. Of course, there's a few people that automatically kind of got grandfathered in because of things that they have done for the league in the past. They've helped with content, they've done some stuff, so I know that their content is good, and if they put an application in, I'm going to accept it. We do have a number that we're trying to keep that total under, because the pro field can get very crowded if we let everyone have access to that. So we try to keep the number low. We're trying to figure out that exact number for this year, figure out how many freelance passes that we give out. But you just apply. It's not really you don't have to have 100,000 followers on Instagram. You don't have to have 100,000 followers on TikTok. You don't have to have 40,000. You don't have to have a giant social media following. It's not about that. It's about quality of work. And if you're putting out good work, there's a really good chance that I'm going to give you a pro pass. Yeah. And I also want to give new people that have never had access to the pro field a pro pass, at least an event. Because you never know. Maybe getting onto the pro field is the thing that you needed to make you elevate your work. So everybody has a chance. It's fair. Well, I think it's fair. Somebody else could argue that it's not. Sure. But yeah, so it's very much I just go through, I review the list, I see who applied, I go through their socials, I go through, watch some of their YouTube videos if they have YouTube videos. Wow. And I'll review the content that they submitted on the application, and then just kind of start picking people.
Wow. I knew you had to like submit a portfolio, but I didn't realize that you personally were spending so much time vetting that. Mm-hmm. Wow. That's that's a lot of work, but I respect you even more for showing that shows how passionate you are about the content that you're putting out. Right. And I definitely want to unpack a few things there. One of my favorite moments during NXL weekends is when that pro field essentially turns into a divisional field, and you have the divisional finals in there and all the other non-pros. It's so cool watching divisional media come over there for the first time at some of these events, and they're just like, their eyes get huge, and there's like, this is so amazing. And you see them take their phone out, and they're taking selfies on the pro field. And so like, that's such a cool thing that you do for the divisional media, because that one moment could be the moment that's like, oh, I tasted it, I want to elevate my work to get there.
Correct. Yeah. And I think it's a big thing to allow them to go do that. Because and at the end of the day, you probably got paid to shoot that team. Yeah. So if I tell you, no, you can't go out there, then you're missing the biggest moment that team may ever have. So to me, it's no different than a pro team hiring a photographer. It's like, no, you get to go where they go. So if a divisional team's on the pro field, congrats, you just got access to the pro field.
Yeah, last year I shot one of my local teams, Austin Assault, and I think it had to have been the Texas event. They made it to the pros or pro field, and they were just like wide-eyed, and so it was cool to be able to capture their story and their moment. And you know, there was some pro team or somebody in the pro circuit, I forget who or what it was, but they were pitting next to them, and they were just like, can you believe it? Like, we're now like sharing pits with whoever it was. Yeah. And so those just moments that like I love as a photographer, that I get to capture those and like see these grown men become like little kids again, you know, about their heroes. It's cool.
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, you want to go see the famous person. You want to go hang out with that pro athlete. I get it. I understand.
Yeah. It's such a cool thing. And I've definitely seen some success stories, like somebody last year, I don't know if this was her first year, but is it Stephanie Sandu or Sandu Media Photography?
Yep.
Carlos from Get That Shot, I think, helped her at the local USXBL event. And then I saw her at a NXL event, and she was like, yeah, this is my first time on the pro field. And you could tell like she was nervous. She was shooting for the Hurricanes. And then fast forward to World Cup, and I think Valken had hired her, like the Hurricanes hired her. And so it's cool from an opportunity, like you're saying, that you're giving a way to elevate someone's career.
Yeah. And that's another thing too, that I don't know a lot of people know, but last season and this season, every pro team has the ability to hire a media person. So if you're looking to get access to the pro field and you hang out with one of the pro teams, you hang out with Royal City Sea Dogs, you hang out with Impact a lot, talk to them, see if they need or want a photographer, and work with them. They can get you added to their roster as a pro media person, and you get access to the pro field. There are some stipulations and some rules that kind of come with that, but that's a way in. Like if you're friends with some of these people on these teams, just ask, because they want pictures of themselves playing paintball too, right? Like you want to see yourself playing paintball. Just because they're pros doesn't mean that they automatically get pictures of themselves playing paintball. So
they don't.
No. So if you have friends that are on a pro team, ask if they want a media person and figure something out there. So there are avenues to get out there outside of just applying for a freelance media pass.
Yeah, and that's also, that might even be a better opportunity for some of these people, because then you start to build a relationship with that pro team, and you're around them for some of their highest moments and lowest moments, and you're now telling their story.
Correct.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that actually brings me to the next question. What do you think, from your perspective as the brand manager for Major League Paintball, what's missing from pro media from your perspective?
Storytelling.
Okay.
Me and a wonderful guy named Jake Jones. I love the little shout out there. But when we were shooting for MLPV last year, we both agreed that what we wanted to do was something similar to a Hard Knocks that the NFL does for a team, where we need to tell stories. The only way to get people invested in paintball is people and telling people's stories. And Verbal did a great job with it this year, doing the Fit Life. That's a great series. So if you want to get invested in a paintball team, go watch Fit Life on Verbal's channel, and it's just awesome. But those kind of things are the things we need. We need storytelling, and we need to learn people and players, and people gravitate towards people. People want to see Marcelo or Ryan or Mouse do well. Like they attach themselves to a person. They attach themselves to a favorite player, and people attach themselves to teams as well, but people like people. So if the more storytelling you can do, the more following one person around you can do, the better off it's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've heard that from so many people, is we're missing stories and we're missing that human element to it. And I know there's a few projects that are in the works in the next year or two that should help shed some light on that. But things like the Great American Paintball Magazine is opening a huge door for the human side of it. That's one of my goals for this podcast, is I don't really want to ask, like, how'd you start playing paintball? Where did you play? What's your favorite marker? Like, I want to know the human person behind that mask.
I mean, and that's important. Like, that's what people want. They want to know people.
Yeah, when you said Hard Knocks, that resonates so much, because as a person who consumes a lot of content as well, that's what I want to consume for football. Whatever my favorite football team is, it's great to watch them on Sundays, but like, I want to know the behind the scenes stuff. Like, I want to see what's that, that practice field chaos. What's the coach telling them? How are they breaking down everything? That's where I see my fandom really skyrocket, when I'm able to have that access into something.
Yeah, for sure. And it's hard with paintball. Like, don't get it wrong. It's very, very hard. Paintball teams live all over the country, especially the pro circuit. I mean, these guys live everywhere. Your local team, y'all are all probably best friends. You probably live 20 miles from each other, and you see each other every weekend. pros, it's very hard to follow a pro paintball team. But we need to try to figure out a way to do it, because that's going to be what helps move the needle more.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on right there. It's not just the pro media. I think it's some of the divisionals too. And the cool thing with what we all have phones in our pockets, and so we can all essentially be content creators.
Yep.
One of my good friends locally, Joel, he's working his way through up the divisionals, and he really wants to take this paintball to the next level and eventually be on the pro field. One of the ways that he and I had conversations, like, build your brand, like, make people know who you are and create content. And you never know, that one post maybe Mike Bianca sees it, maybe Ryan Gray sees it and like, oh, who is this guy? And so he's now starting to go through that journey of, all right, like, I'll show my human side of it. And I think we're seeing more and more of that in paintball. Is we're seeing some more content creators come up, and whether it's vlogging, whether it's just documenting their weekend at these events, it's really helpful.
We are a lot better than we used to be.
Yeah.
But we are not where we need to be.
Yeah.
So we're growing, but there's still a lot of room for growth in that area. So if you're a person watching this and you're just a normal dude that's playing paintball every weekend with his friends, get your phone, record a video, start posting on TikTok, start posting on Instagram, just do it. Like Dan did with the show. Just decide to do it and do it. Like, quit asking questions.
Yeah. The really cool thing about doing that is, even if it feels weird in the moment, it's always when you are out of it and you're a month or two down the road or a year down the road, you can look back at that vlog or that piece of content and relive that exact moment.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
So yeah, I hope this year we start to see more content creators take off in the sport. I think it'll be really healthy for us.
Yeah.
I did notice a few times this year, you stepped out of the pro media tent and you pulled out your camera. So speaking of creating content, talk to me about that. Like, what's the why behind that?
Well, I've always loved photography. My aunt got me hooked on photography when I was like 6, and I took a long break, as in like when I was growing up, and then I kind of got back into it, did a lot of nature photography stuff, and then started shooting paintball again, and I just love taking photos of stuff. And I realized that I was missing. I enjoy the work, but I miss shooting photos or video at events. So an easy way for me to kind of counteract that is just bring out a film camera and take some photos of people, and just kind of pick some shots that I want to take and take some shots. And I've also started a project called Faces of Paintball. And it's basically just a close up of faces. And what I've found is that the paintball community is far larger than anyone wants to realize. Because you have your 85-year-old grandfather that is a veteran of 2 wars that is coming to watch his great granddaughter play her favorite sport, her great grandson play, and just wants to, like, it's the same as going to a football game, but they're just at a paintball event. And then you have pros, you have moms, daughters, sons, sisters, husbands, wives, all from different countries, different states. Like, we have all 50 states are represented at pretty much every event. Over 50 countries are represented at pretty much every event. So the people that you see is just this incredible mix of people. And it's too awesome to not take the opportunity to walk around and take some pictures with some people and say hi. And, hey, can I take a picture real quick? Oh, what's it for? Blah, blah, blah. And it's an easy way to meet people and kind of learn their stories for a moment. So that's kind of why you might see me run around with a camera at an event.
I love that. That's so cool. Like, that's why I'm so glad I brought you on. 'Cause, like, I've seen you take these photos and I've just never known where they've gone.
A lot of them kind of live on my hard drive, to be honest with you. My personal social media has suffered greatly at the cost of this job, because I'm on social media a lot. So I don't have the drive to post a lot of stuff, but Every now and then I will, and I have some really cool shots that I absolutely adore. But it's one of those things where it's not priority for me to get them out there. I love looking at them. I love
Yeah.
seeing them. I love that feel of when I look at a photo that I took that I absolutely love, and I'm like, dang, I like that. But outside of that, it's one of those things that it's for me. Some of it's for everyone else, and everyone else can see it, but most of it's just for me.
Yeah, I respect that. As you were going through that, I was like, oh, it'd be a cool Instagram account, like the faces of paintball, and like then you feature it. But as you were telling, like this is for me, I was like, I totally respect why you do that, because
Yeah,
the spot that you're in, at some point you're gonna look back and be like, man, this was just such a blur. And now you'll see that one face and it'll bring you right back to that event and like what that
yeah,
person talked about, and you'll never forget that.
yeah. And like the faces of paintball thing, I want to post and share more. I plan on doing it at probably every event this year.
Cool.
And I think I posted one from World Cup. I posted a couple of series for the ICPL after Texas, and they do really well. I mean, because people like seeing people. It's back to what we were talking about. People like seeing people. So I'll probably keep doing it, but it'll live on the league's pages.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, at least it's still getting out there and you're still featuring someone's story. We've got, speaking of faces, there's a generational paintball family in Texas. The guy that I know is Josh Cherry, but he's got, I think his dad and maybe now his son plays. And I took some photos of him maybe last year, the year before, and he sent me a picture of a photo album that his dad made of all of the paintball pictures. And he was like, hey, now your work is in here adding a new chapter to the generation. And it was just unreal that this sport connected generations of a family together.
Yeah, I mean if you look at it like people look at football, it's a lifelong thing that people will play their entire lives, and they will get their son into it, they will get their daughter into it, and they will start building moments that they had when they were kids.
Yeah.
So everyone wants photos of it.
Yeah, it's true. And they'll live forever. So all you people that say photos are dying, they're not. They're going to be around forever.
Oh no, there will be photographers until the world ends.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got a few more questions for you.
Yeah, of course.
I obviously am running a much smaller brand than yours. But for me, it can be a 24-hour job where I'm getting DMs, collaboration requests. I've got Patreon now that has a Discord inside of it. And so it can be a 24-hour job. And I find myself, I've got to unplug every once in a while. How do you do that? Like, how do you unplug from this so you can have time with your family as well?
Usually so on my phone, 99% of notifications come to my phone. At 6 p.m., which is when the day is typically over, personal, whatever, basically do not disturb goes on, and I stop seeing most of the notifications. When I start getting ready for bed, then my phone goes on completely leave me alone mode, and pretty much no one can get me except for super important people close to me. But it's a daily thing, because if it's too much for anybody. You don't need to be on your phone 24/7. You don't need to be doing that. You need to be able to live life and have moments with people, and hang out with your girlfriend, hang out with your boyfriend, hang out with your wife or husband, your kids, blah, 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 and still have experiences. But it's very much put your phone on do not disturb. If it's super important, add them to your favorites list and they'll come through. But if it's not, it is what it is. I mean, you have to live life. And back to the airplane thing. You got to take care of yourself before you can worry about others.
Was that always the case for you when you started this role, or is that something that you had to learn throughout events?
I had to learn, man. My phone started just blowing up 24/7, and I was like, man, this is just too much. I can't do it.
Yeah.
And it'll get to you for sure if you're not careful. But you just kind of silence notifications, put it on do not disturb, put it on focus, whatever mode that your phone may have. Or heck, even if you got to, sometimes I'll just put my phone in my bedroom and leave it there.
Yeah.
Like, Some days it's just too much. I'm just tired of looking at screens. I'm tired of looking at a phone. I'm tired of holding this object in my hands for hours a day. And I'll just go put it on the desk in my bedroom, and it is what it is. I don't need it. Like it'll be okay.
And do you feel, and the reason I ask this question is I struggle with this, where if I do that, I feel, I guess it's anxiety of like, I'm missing something. Like, what if someone reached out to me, or what if it's an email, or like, what if somebody sent me a collaboration post? Like, do you feel that at all?
I did. But I guess something clicked over where I realized that it's all going to be there in the morning. And if it's not, I have much bigger problems to worry about. So I've also always been a person that prefers to live in the moment. I'm not the dude taking photos of fireworks. I'm not the dude videoing concerts. I'm not the dude stopping in a parking lot to take a photo of a cute flower or my wife walking. I'm not that person. I am here to experience it, and those memories live in my brain. So it's that FOMO that you're talking about is something that I have been very, very blessed to not have a very strong sense of. There's some things that I have FOMO of experiences, but I don't have it when it comes to I'm missing a collaboration post, I'm missing an email, I'm missing a phone call, because I've kind of structured my life and the way people get in touch with me in a way that if it's really important, like if something's actually going on, then I will know. There are ways for you to get in touch with me, and we will get it figured out.
Yeah.
But social media will be there when I wake up. The emails will be there when I wake up. And if they're not, that means the internet has crashed and my job is no longer valid. So it's a hard choice for a lot of people to make. And the algorithm is addicting on purpose.
Yeah.
And
totally.
they suck you in and they keep you there as long as possible. So it's very hard to turn off if you have a FOMO. You have that fear of missing out and you're wondering what's kind of going on. But just like everything else, it's a very conscious decision to just decide to disconnect and not worry about it.
Gosh, that's such an incredible advice from somebody who's running. I don't even know how many followers the Major League Paintball account has now. It's got to be hundreds of thousands, right?
There's a lot of people.
Yeah. And so to be able to unplug from that, that's incredible. And so anyone out there, if you want to run a brand, it's also really important to disconnect too, because you'll come back to that next day or that next post even more refreshed than what you were.
And I think when it comes to like personal brands, especially, what might get lost on some people is that people know when you're faking it. Whether you believe you're doing great or not, people know that you're faking it.
Yeah.
And the best way to make sure you're not faking it is, one, be yourself, and two, to have experiences to make sure you keep being yourself. In order to have experiences, you have to put your phone down and quit worrying about what's on Instagram. So keep living life. Of course, set aside an hour to do whatever content creation you want. Set aside 2 hours a day, whatever your number is, and do it then. But outside of that, you got to live. You got to go have experiences. You can't be in a house all day long recording content.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that you said that, because that is literally the perfect advice for somebody who's looking to create content, or whether it's be a photographer or build a brand. Your audience or your potential following will know instantly if you're doing this out of passion or if it's just simply you're trying to make money.
Yep.
You can see it so clearly, and I see it a lot in the sport, where you can tell who's money driven or passion driven first.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not just paint. That's not a paintball thing. That's a worldwide thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's everything.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I know we talked a lot about your being a brand manager and some of the tips that you have, but what's one thing, if somebody came up to you, at the next event in Tampa and they're like, Alex, I want to be a brand manager, what would you tell that person?
Consistency is the most important thing possible. Sometimes the content doesn't matter as much as you might think, as long as you're consistent with posting. And understand that you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to make big mistakes. Just know that from the get, and be okay with those mistakes, and understand that you're going to have to figure out a way to pivot and work your way out of those mistakes. But it's just doing it. Just decide to do it to the best of your ability. There's a lot of material out there that if you're wanting to be a brand manager, there's a ton of content that you can find on how to do that effectively. There's a book by Gary Vaynerchuk that is, what's it called? It's his newest book. It's called, I think it's Mining Attention. Something about I can't remember the name of it. It's in my life right now. But that book is a fantastic asset to have if you're trying to do brand management, if you're trying to advance social media and figure out a way to kind of grow and step up. That book has helped me a lot with kind of some processes that I go through, and really learning how to optimize each social media for that social media. So at first, consistency is key. Just post whatever you want. And then once you've been consistent for a while, then you can start tailoring content to the crowd that you have, and tailoring content to each specific platform, because Instagram is going to promote different things than TikTok would, and TikTok is going to promote different things than Facebook, and Facebook's going to promote different things than Twitter or X. So just be consistent at first, get content out all the time, as often as you can. Sometimes is better than just not doing it. Just get whatever out, whatever.
Yeah.
And then once you have months, weeks, years into just being consistent, then you can start kind of ironing out exactly what you want to post, whether that's, hey, we need to focus more on personal stories. We need to focus more on our brand identity. We need to focus more on our team that's here. We need to focus on whatever it is. Then you can start kind of whittling out what is important to your fan base and what is important to making sure that you're pushing your content and brand in the direction that you want it to go.
Gosh, that's such incredible advice. I love Gary V's content, and I did not realize he had a new book out. So I will be adding that to my list to help my brand too.
Yeah, I think it came out in 2024, I believe. I may be wrong. I could be completely wrong.
It's last year at this point. It's crazy to think.
Yeah, I know. But no, it's a great book. And he goes into a lot of detail on the good things for each platform and kind of how the platforms are optimizing their algorithms and what kind of algorithms they are, and laying out a good picture for how to be successful being a brand manager in the new age.
Gosh, that's awesome. I will definitely be adding that to my cart today and ordering it today.
It's a great book.
Thanks for the recommendation.
Yeah, of course.
So I've got, if you've seen any of my episodes, I always end with a segment where one of my favorite podcasts, The Diary of a CEO, he asks his guest a question.
Whose podcast is that? Is that Frizella?
No, it's Dave something. He's the CEO of a ton of different companies, or he has, and he has ownership. I think he's a part owner in the Whoop, like the Whoop band.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
but no.
Good question.
His podcast is really good because he just brings on such a wide variety of guests, and he gets he himself gets vulnerable and opens up, but he also unlocks that from people too. And I love it so much. Yeah. But he ends his episodes with, he asks that guest a question from a previous guest, and then that guest next gets to ask a question to the next guest without knowing who it is.
All right.
So it's cool. So your question actually comes from Matt the Gym Rat, and and before I ask it, people have gone down any rabbit hole you want to. It could be like a super serious philosophy question. It could be a paintball question. It could be random.
All right.
But his is, if you could have one superpower, what would it be and why?
Ooh, one superpower. Ooh, that's tough. It'd probably be flight. Probably be flight. And it'd be because I travel a lot, and it would probably save me lots of money. Lots of money. I could just drop ship whatever I need to wherever I'm going and then just fly and just be done. Actually, no, I changed that. Teleportation. Teleportation is way better because then I'm just there immediately.
I love that.
Yeah. Teleportation. Yeah. Because I spend so much time in cars and planes and whatever other form of travel. Teleportation would be the ticket.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good one. It's funny because when you were saying flying, my mind immediately went to the image behind you. Like, oh, you could like take your own drone shots at that point.
Exactly. Like you could just pick up your camera and just do whatever you wanted.
Yeah. That's such a good answer. I think if I remember correctly, Matt said his was flying and mine was also flying as well.
Yeah.
But I didn't even think about teleporting. That's a great one.
Yeah, because if you're teleporting, then you could like hold a handful of items, teleport, then go back, get more stuff. Like you could just do that.
Yeah.
So like it also would have helped with this whole move that I'm doing because I could have just snapped my fingers and been wherever I wanted to be. So I think it's teleportation for sure. Flying was as a close second, but teleportation for sure.
You know, it's funny you talked about teleporting would help you move like your homes, and I instantly thought like, oh well, if I got Ben and Jerry's at the store, it wouldn't be melted by the time I got home.
Exactly. You wouldn't have to worry about cold takeout food. Like you could just pop in, pop out, and you're good to go. Yeah. It'd be great. You wouldn't have to worry about traffic. Like if you went to a football game, you could just like immediately pop home and you wouldn't have to worry about anything. You don't have to pay for parking ever again. It'd be awesome. It'd be so fantastic.
It'd be so good.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Alex, now it's your turn. You get to ask a question to the next guest without knowing who it is.
What are some other previous questions that have been asked?
So Sal Chavez, pro media from Dynasty and BFP Gear, he was the first one, and he went with is cereal a soup or chowder? Which that's broken everybody's mind so far.
Oh my god, that's a chowder for sure.
Okay, so you're quick on that. Yeah. Ryan Greenspan went a little more. Alex went pretty deep, and his was, what's a problem that you had to recently solve and why?
Okay.
What were some of the other ones?
That's a good question.
ABJ was, I think, if you had $50,000 as a paintball player, or maybe it's 30, what would you do with it? And so people are, asking just a wide spectrum of questions. It's been great.
Okay. Let's see. If there was one goal that once you set, it was guaranteed to come true in 2025, what would that goal be?
Wow. That's such a good question.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I like that one.
What would be yours?
I don't know. I have to think. That one would make me think for a bit. I don't know what my goal would be. I'm in an interesting spot in life where there's a lot of things going on. So picking out one goal is very hard like that. It might be probably compete and win a strongman competition.
Yeah, there you go. I love that.
Yeah, because that would bring me a level of joy that I think I would be able to use for a very long time.
Yeah, you just manifested it on the show. It's going to happen.
Yeah, we just not have to do it. I have a rule with some of my gym friends that if you say it, it has to happen. You got to try it. You got to try it at least. And
now the problem with this is it's going to live on the internet, so it's going to be there forever.
Exactly. Now I have to do a strongman comp this year.
Yeah.
It'll be all right. I'll do it.
Awesome. Well, Alex, thank you so much. One, for being on the show, but two, for all the work that you do for not just Major League Paintball, but just for paintball in general. Social media is one of the most important ways of how we can help grow the sport that we all love. And a lot of that is thanks to what you do for all of the brands that you run and support.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me and giving me this opportunity to kind of talk to everybody about what's going on. It's a crazy world. Just remember that we read the comments. So be nice. Just be nice. That's all I have to say. Just be nice, man.
This is the face right here that you're talking to, so make sure you be nice to him.
Yeah, just be nice, man. I'm trying my best. I promise. Just be nice.
We appreciate it. You're doing such a great job.
Thanks, man.
Awesome.
I appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much for everybody for tuning in to another episode of the Shellda podcast, and we'll see you next time.